So let's take a look at your new patient statistics. What are the new patient statistics that you should definitely keep? Well, when we do the practice analysis, so we want to keep track of obviously we want to keep track of all of our patients. You need to know how many, what are you averaging? That's going to tell you a lot of information. And you always need to compare it to what is the industry norm, or you won't even know. I actually had a doctor who was seeing 60 visits a week, and he thought that was normal. He goes, and the reason is because that's what his friends see. I'm like, you're kidding me. He was a significant underperformer and didn't even know it. That makes a difference. Helps with it can potentially help with motivation. Number one, if you can see, well, you're an underperformer, you go, wait a minute, the national average is 107 visits a week. He's seeing 60. And he wasn't motivated to, he was just like, well, it's normal. I'm like, no, it's not. You're not even average. So obviously we want to know the source. What's the source of the new patient? We want to know the source for referral methods. Why do we need to know that? We need to know who to thank for referrals, number one. But remember, you have to have your list of quality patients. There's your regular patients in your office. And then remember, if they refer one person, they go into what's called the B list. That's the 17 percenters. And if they refer more than two people, they go into what's called the 3 percenters. That's the Pareto's law. Because remember, the reason you want to keep that is because it's Pareto's law. Everybody does not refer proportionately. It's the 80-20. You'll have 20% of your patients referring 80% of your business. And why do you need to know that? Every time you do a marketing event, you're going to focus really hard on the 3% and the 17 percenters. So when you're calculating these new patients, you definitely want to keep the source to see if they're the 20 percenters. The 20 percenters, remember the 20 percenters will refer 80% of your business. So anytime you do a marketing event, like let's say a monthly internal promotion or patient appreciation day or anything like that, even if you're just going for a referral, you want to know who your 20 percenters are in your practice and pay a lot of attention. Make sure you focus on them because you're going to have a higher probability alone just going after them for a referral versus somebody who hasn't referred before. And that's just being smart. And we pay attention to the active 20 percenters and the passive 20 percenters. Because I'd rather go after the passive 20 percenters than an active 80% who's never referred. People who refer are more likely to refer. Okay, so that's why we got to keep these stats, sources, and the return on investment. We want to know the return on investment. How much money are we going to make for what we're doing? You always want to be able to calculate your return on investment. Your return minus your cost divided by your total return, and that gives you your return on investment. And again, if you're doing anything that's greater than 3-to-1, the general rule is if it's 3-to-1 or greater, you keep doing it. You keep doing it. Because remember, there's one rule about marketing. Well, not marketing, advertising. There's one guaranteed rule about advertising. Eventually, it's not going to work. Okay, so we want to know the source of the new patient. We want to know the patient type, the payment type. Again, this will tell us where to focus. Maybe we're getting patients, somewhere that it's easier to get patients, so to speak. Or we're not getting patients somewhere where we're spending a lot of time. Say you're spending a lot of time or money somewhere and you go, well, wait a minute, we're not getting very many patients from that at all. You got to figure out why. So the patient type, and that'll make a big difference in your patient retention. I mean, the easiest patients to keep are personal injury patients. It's paid for, and essentially they're rewarded for coming in. And then the most difficult is the cash patient who comes in off of a discount plan, a cold call cash patient who comes in from a discount promotion. That's the hardest patient there is. That's why I say if you really want to find how good your patient retention is, only do your patient breakout, your breakout analysis, your dropout analysis with your cold call cash patients with a discount. That's how you'll really find out how good your skills are. Okay. We always like to keep track if they prepaid or not. And prepay means they just accepted the plan. It doesn't mean that they paid it all up front. It means they just accepted a biweekly treatment plan, or not a biweekly treatment plan. They accepted the treatment plan with automated biweekly payments. So that's what the prepayment. And the bottom line is everything gets very, very difficult as soon as you don't have patients prepay. You can almost be guaranteed they're going to be gone within 8 to 12 visits, 6 to 12 visits. They're going to be gone. And if you don't believe that, then you haven't been in practice very long. So that's the importance of the prepay. And then obviously if they accepted the prepay, that's very important. They don't accept prepays, you got a problem. You got a communication problem, you got a money problem, you got a real problem. I mean, you want to get, I always say if you get over 50% of your patients to prepay, you won't have a new patient problem. If you get over, and the goal is to shoot for at least 75, 3 out of 4 prepay. That's the goal. You won't get 100%, but shoot for 75%. And if you've done prepays at all, you know, those are the easiest patients to deal with. Okay, so what do we want to keep track with the new patients? We want to keep track of your total new patients. And then you want to know your average. You take, what is your patient visit for, and you go month to month. In other words, you should know what your monthly new patients are. You shouldn't even have to look at a paper because remember, you should be going over this every week. Every week when you go do your staff meeting, you're covering all the basic stats. So you should just know basic stats because you're covering every week. Well, I always say one of the clues that I know a chiropractor is not doing well, he doesn't even know his stats. He doesn't know his number of patient visits he sees a week. He doesn't know his number of new patients. He doesn't know his dollar per visit collection. He doesn't even know basic stats. That's a chiropractor who's not doing well. I don't know if anybody does well that actually that doesn't know their stats, because that's how you interpret everything. That's how you act on everything. That's where you spend your time and money to build your practice. So total new patients over monthly is what you should do. And then the source of the new patient. Now, one of the things we always want to do is we want to know the source of the new patient, or excuse me, not just the source. We want to know if it is an active patient or a passive patient. Now, this is huge. And what does it mean, active versus passive? Active is you created it. And the reason this is huge is because your life, your quality of life, and your options exponentially increase when you know how to create new patients and keep them. Your quality of life exponentially will increase. And I'll share with you why in just a second. So you go, well, what's a passive new patient? Well, passive new patient is you didn't do anything and they came in. It was a referral and they came in. Okay, so that's just a passive new patient. And then we're also paying attention to active patient versus a cold call patient. So an active patient is you created. That's important. How many patients did you create? Now, they could be a proactive patient or a passive. Like you can create a patient passively, but it's not a cause and effect relationship. You just treated somebody and they were fine with the service, the quality, and the results, and they referred somebody in. Okay. Now, you never want to wait around for that, because that's only 7% of the referrals. Only 7% of people will refer like that. That's why you never wait around for passive referrals. So you go, okay, well, how many active, proactive patients? Proactive are the ones you created. In other words, it's a cause and effect. You did this, you did a monthly in office promotion, and you created X new patients. You did a spouse to day 5 and you created. You did a presentation and you created. You did a re-report referral and you created. That's it, proactive. That tells you you've got skill. That tells you have knowledge and skill. That's huge. So we're always going to pay attention how many proactive patients we get, and then versus passive. So we're not going to, it's good to get passive patients, but that's, you want way more active patients than passive. You want over 50% of your patients to be proactive. That means you are controlling whatever it is you want to control with new patients. You're not dependent on the 8% of patients looking for a chiropractor. That's what that means. It means everything. I once looked at a couple offices, stats, and one doctor, he had like 27 new patients. And another doctor had, I think it was 10. And you would go, well, you'd be more worried about the 10 versus the 27. And I wasn't. I was worried about the doctor seeing who had 27 new patients. And I was not worried about the doctor seeing 10. Why? The 10 new patients, the doctor created 8 out of 10 of them on his own. So he knew how to create patients. The other guy didn't. Even though he was getting 27, they were passive or they were from advertising. He was in trouble if his advertising didn't work. He was in trouble. The other guy wasn't in trouble. He was going to be able to create that and more next month. It was just up to him how many he wanted to create it. In other words, he showed the ability to create the new patients. The other reason is, as an example, when you want to hire an associate doctor. Well, what's the number one criteria that you need? You need to be able to create new patients. I actually had a client chiropractor. He goes, man, I want to hire an associate doctor. And he was only averaging like 16 new patients a month. Now, remember, the average chiropractors can see about 20 to 25 new patients a month only. But that's if you're keeping them. Now, if you're letting them drop off left and right, then yeah, you can see 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 new patients. If they're leaving on the first or second day. But you got 75% prepay rate, you're not going to be able to see definitely more than 25 because you got limited time. And there's something called industrial hours. They don't come in throughout the day. They come in through 3 peak times of the day. And so you have to service them. You got to be able to service them. And you won't have the time to. So it's only about 25, 20 if you're really good at your patient retention. That's it. That's it. That's all the only average doctor before he's maxed out is exchange of time for money, seeing 180 to 220 visits a week. That on average, that's what the average chiropractor can see. I just talked with a client yesterday. He saw 231 patients last week, and he's beat up. He goes, man, I feel like I'm beat up. He's not going to last doing that. And he knows that. He's pushing for an associate doctor right now. He knows he can't do that and keep it up. And he can't grow his practice. He's capped out. He can't grow his practice until he brings somebody in to help process more business. So you have to know this. You have to know active versus passive versus cold call because it tells you the quality. So I used to average, as an example, when I was practicing by myself, I averaged 33 new patients. So I averaged more than what I should have. Of course, that's why I went right to the first associate doctor and the second associate doctor. But before I had the associate doctors, I averaged 33 new patients. 74% of them were active patients, were proactive patients. Over 50% were proactive, meaning I created them. So if it weren't for me creating patients and knowing how to create patients, I'd have probably seen 15 new patients a month. And I never would have gotten my first associate doctor. I never would have opened my second, third, or fourth, or fifth office. See? Hell, I'd be practicing and I wouldn't even be giving this webinar right now. So this is when your opportunities skyrocket. That's why we pay so much attention on educational sales with new patients. You have to get that skill down because you're never going to get over 20, 25 new patients when only 8% of the people are looking for a chiropractor. You can't advertise yourself to success. You got to have some skill and knowledge. So the active patients, once you know how to do that, well, that's like the guy I was just sharing with you. He wanted to hire the associate doctor. He's seeing 16 new patients. I said, who's going to get where's the associate doctor going to get new patients? Well, he can get them on his own. Who's going to teach him? He doesn't even know how. You're going to teach him how to get 16 new patients? You didn't even create those on your own. He didn't have the skill to do it on his own. So where's the money going to come from to pay the associate doctor if the head doctor doesn't even know how to get new patients? It's going to come out of head doctor's pocket is where it's going to come. That's why these relationships don't last. That's the number one reason associate doctors don't last. The doctor doesn't know how to create new patients. He doesn't know how to teach the associate doctor to create new patients. And when that happens, money's coming out of his pocket. In other words, he's losing money every month for the associate doctor. That's why I just talked with a doctor the other day at the convention that he goes, yeah, I tried a couple of associate doctors. I said, let me guess, they cost you too much money. He goes, yeah. Well, what did that tell me immediately? Told me he didn't know how to create new patients and he didn't know how to teach it. He had no business bringing on associate doctors. And he lost, I think he said he lost $80,000. Never should cost you $80,000. Only cost 1 or 2 months of salary before they break even, and that's it. So you're talking $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 tops. So this number is huge. When I look at statistics and new patients, I'll go to the total new patients. I'll go because that'll tell me a lot. And then I'll go to how many of them are active versus passive. Now, most of the time when doctors come in, they don't have a clue how to get new patients. So their active new patients their total new patients are typically low. And then their active new patients are low. And then guess what category is typically high? Advertising. The worst type of patient you can get. Cost you money, time. They're the most difficult to process. Profit goes down, overhead goes up. And that's what I see time and time again with chiropractic statistics. Advertising. And the advertising doesn't even push them into overflow. Advertising doesn't even push them into over 25 new patients a month. Usually they'll get 8, 9, or 10, or something like that with advertising. It's cost prohibitive. It's especially if the doctor doesn't know how to keep the patient. That ends quickly. The money the doctor spends versus losing the patient in 4, 5, 6 visit. There's no more advertising going on. There's no more money to do it. So that skill level of knowing, that's everything right there. Knowing how to create patients with the educational sales. And of course, that's where the big market's at. It's in the 92%. It's not in the 8%. That's where the gold's at. And so we always want that number to be over 50. You want your new patients to get up to at least 20, 25 as a minimum. So it maxes your exchange of time for money. And then you want a high percentage, at least 70, 80% of your patients to be what are called proactive patients. In other words, you know how to create them. That's what you want. Otherwise, you have a very unstable practice. You're dependent on everybody and everything else to work. I had a doctor one time, we did his statistics. He was 96% PI. And we found out that only 3 attorneys were responsible for 96% of his business. There were only 3 people that was responsible for him being successful. 3. I mean, one of them could have died. One of them could have moved away. One of them could have gotten in an argument with him. Maybe their business would have suffered for potential referrals. He had no idea how close he was to the edge of the cliff to going under because he didn't have the skill level. So he had the personal injury referrals from those 3 attorneys, but he didn't have the skill level on how to get new patients. And then when we did it further, we did the patient retention with the 4% that the non-PI patients, and he lost every one of them by the 6th visit. And he thought he was a good chiropractor. He had absolutely no skill level whatsoever. And then it showed up when he tried to hire an associate doctor. He didn't know how to do it, and he don't know how to train it. So when he brought in the associate doctor, it just cost him money. He lost money, and it never worked out. He kept trying to make the associate doctors. He probably brought in 10 associate doctors over 5-6 years. None of them ever worked out. Now, what's the bad news about that? It means he's going to have to work the rest of his life. He's never going to be able to take time off, long time off, or long periods off, or work work part-time. He's going to have to be his nose to the grindstone Monday through Friday the rest of his life. That's a sad statistic right there. Okay, so that's what we want to pay attention with the new patients. How many did we get? The source of the new patient. We want to go, that determines a lot with the quality, and then it determines what you can do. And then remember, the source also will determine the marketing. What are we going to do with our marketing, and what are some of the things we maybe need to stop doing with our marketing because we're not getting a return on investment? So these are the numbers you just need to know with your statistics. So here's what we're looking for. We're looking for that you have at least over 20 to 25 new patients a month. That's a really good noun. Then we want to go to the source and go, are you creating at least 50% of that business through proactive, active, or passive business? Because that creates stability is what that does, especially if they're proactive. That says you can just turn it on and off whenever you want. And that's exactly what I was able to do. If I wanted new patients, I knew exactly what to do. It was never a new patient problem because the vast majority of people out there have chiropractic problems. It's the chiropractor that doesn't know how to communicate with them or doesn't that has the new patient problem. So I'm going to look at the total. We'd like it to be 2025. Good. We'd like it to be at least over 50% proactive. We'd like to get it up to 70. Now, when you get it up to 70 and it's proactive, wow, you talk about your world changing. You now can bring on associate doctors. You can bring on your first associate doctor, your second associate doctor, your third associate doctor, because you know how to create them. And if you know how to create them, you're going to know how to teach it to your associate doctor so they can actually get business too and not just wait for the phone to ring. Then you can not only do that, you can open satellite offices. You can pre-sell offices. Your income, you will make more money not practicing than practicing when you know how to create new patients and keep them. You'll lose money actually treating patients. That's like me. I would have lost money treating patients instead of opening offices or satellite offices or creating personal injury referrals. I got doctors right now that they're the rainmakers, but they don't know it. They should be all their time should be out creating business because they're the rainmakers, but they're stuck in their office seeing patients. A lot of it's psychological. They haven't gone over the hump yet. They haven't even seen the vision yet. That's what a lot of that's about. But that's what you want to pay attention to. You go, okay, I want it to at least get to 25 more. I want at least over 50% proactive. That tells me I know how to create patients. Soon as you know how to create patients, you go to your first associate doctor, you go to your second associate doctor. Quality of life exponentially increases. Your passive income increases. You can take time off. You make more money. It's unbelievable how fast. And then when you take time off, when you know how to do this, then what you do is you become the rainmaker. You go to the sources that creates the business and you go to higher end sources. This is when you would go to higher end quality patients and even go into like marketing to attorneys to get real high dollar per visit cases. And then let your associate doctors treat the business or even lower case values. So if you're going to practice You still create more business than you physically can handle, but now you want to focus on the higher valued cases and exchange out the lower value cases. Give your Medicare, Medicaid, and cash patients over to your associate doctor, and then to free you up to see more higher dollar case averages. I just talked to a doctor about that the other day. He's got an associate doctor. He sees about 170 visits a week, 180. I said, well, you're kind of at the tipping point of you really can't see more new patients. He goes, yeah, you're about right. I said, what I would do is you need to shift over the lower quality paying patients to your associate doctor, and then you start the personal injury marketing and start increasing the percentage of personal injury cases that you take on, whatever it is now, from 3%, get it up to 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 to 30 to 50. Keep bringing in all the other cash and Medicare and everything else. You just move them over to your associate doctors. That's it. So your quality of life significantly changes. Number one, when you know patient retention, but the most important after patient retention is when you know how to do educational sales and create business. You'll make the most money per unit of time. And now you can start leveraging. And really what you should be doing is bringing on associate doctors, practicing less, and then you being the rainmaker and really filling up all the funnels, all the associate doctors, and increasing the quality and higher paying patients. And then you can open satellite offices. You can sell off offices. Again, you can sell off an office for $250,000 easy. You do 2 of those a year, that's $500,000 profit. Chances are you're never going to make $500,000 profit on your own, practicing on your own. You could, but you're going to bust your butt and you're going to have a high dollar per visit. You're not going to get that way with $50 per visit. You're going to have $100 per visit to get there, and you have to bust your butt. So anyway, that's the importance. And what we want to, the relevance of what do we want to look at? Total new patients, where did the source they came from, and then start shifting, not only to increase the number of total, but the quality with your marketing. And most of that goes with what's the single most important factor that changes the number of new patients? Knowing educational sales. That's it. It's not advertising. Remember, advertising only gets the 8% that are looking. Educational sales is what gets out of the 92% of those that are not looking for a chiropractor. That's what educational sales does. That's how I was able to see 200, 300 visits a week, 400 visits a week, open my second office, third office, fourth office, fifth office, 20th office, 70th office. It was educational sales combined with patient education, knowing how to create the business and keep it. So that's the important part of paying attention to your marketing. So when you look at your new patient statistics, that's what you should be looking at. What's the total compared to the normal? What's the source? So if you're one of the doctors that has a less than a 50% proactive, then you've got an educational sales problem. If you got a high percentage, but you got a low number of new patients of proactive, it means you're not motivated. You're not doing what you need to do to create more new patients. So either you don't have the skill or you're not using it because you're not motivated. Most of the time, the doctors don't have the skill, and that's why they're stuck at whatever, 16 new patients, 20, 15, whatever it is.